Tonight, we're talking about something that people claim is actually real. Something that has been reported across the world by ordinary people in ordinary places. People who had no reason to lie and nothing to gain from coming forward. Every single encounter shares the same details, the same cold dread, the same instinct to run, and every single encounter ends with the same warning. This is the Black-Eyed Children. Children, in the eyes of the world, have always been seen as a sign of new beginnings. Their innocence in their truest form, and they are the hope for humanity. They are the changers of the world. What about them could be so dark or cruel? What about their very presence could cause fear to strike in one's body? What if I told you that all children are not always what they seem? Imagine this. It's the late evening, and you're getting ready for bed, when a sudden knock on your door distracts you from your nightly routine. You walk over to your front door, looking through the small peephole. At first glance, all you can see are two children. They look to be around the age of 7 and 15. Their faces weren't visible, as the hoodies they wore shielded their eyes. To you, nothing seemed too out of the ordinary. You were just questioning as to why these kids were at your doorstep so late. You open the door slowly, the hinges creaking as a cold breeze of air brushes past your face. In the midst of asking them what's wrong or if they need help, you finally get a good look at what's under their hood-shrouded face. Your heart stops, your body freezes, and you become filled with a sense of absolute dread. Your once sleep-filled body is now alert as you stare directly into their eyes. They were not normal children. They were not the innocence of youth the world thought them to be. No, these children were entities, monsters, demons. Even in the moment of shock, with fear scattered throughout your every being, you managed to slam the door shut. But as you pressed your body back against the door, the vision of their eyes was engraved into your memory. Fully black, no whites, no iris, no pupils, just a black void. The first sighting of these black-eyed children was documented by a man named Brian Bethel, a journalist for the Abilene Reporter News in Abilene, Texas. What Brian thought was going to be a normal night turned out to be a terrifying encounter that he would never forget. It was the spring of 1996. Brian had just finished a late-night shift at work. His day was a busy one, as he was trying to catch up on writing his news reports. He was cutting it close to his deadlines. Despite the tiring day of his shift, though, he remembered he needed to take care of an unpaid bill in town. He drove his car to the area, which was in a dimly lit strip mall. As Brian pulled into the strip mall parking lot stall, he could only feel a sense of eeriness. He recounted that the mall looked isolated, and the theater he had parked in front of looked almost empty. The only thing keeping him calm at that time was the faint glow of the theater's marquee. He had planned to just drop the check off in the company's drop slot box, since they were already closed for the night. But it seemed fate had other plans for him. As Brian began writing out his check, his focus was broken as he heard the sound of knocking at his driver's side window. He looked up to see two boys around the ages of 9 and 14 standing in front of the car door, their faces shielded by their hoodies. The older of the boys spoke, saying they wanted to see the Mortal Kombat movie, but forgot their money at home and had asked Brian to drive them to their mother's house. Unsure of what to say at first, Brian glanced at the theater's marquee, then at the digital clock in his car. The last showing of the movie had already started, and if he drove these two kids home and back, the movie would have almost ended by then. The older of the two spoke again, as he seemed to sense the unease from the both of them. The boy said it wouldn't take long, and that they were just two little kids, and that they didn't have a gun or anything. That shook Brian. To him, those words almost insinuated that these kids didn't need a gun to do something. The more the kids spoke, Brian noticed that his voice felt off. He He described it as sounding monotonous and smooth, his words feeling rehearsed and almost alluring. It didn't sound right for a normal child to have that sense of articulation and tone. As the older boy continued on, Brian mentioned that his own hand began reaching out towards the lock on his door, an action that he never meant to do, but subconsciously, for some reason, did. Finally noticing this action, Brian pulled his hand back quickly. This did not go unnoticed by the boys, and the older of the two, who had been speaking the entire time, seemed to have gotten more aggressive. He leaned closer to the opening of the window, telling Brian that they couldn't go in unless he told them it was okay. As Brian looked at the boy's face, it finally hit him. The last of his composure was lost, and all he could do was stare in shock for what seemed like forever. Under the hood of their jackets, he had seen their cold black eyes. Everything in his mind and body told him that he needed to get away. Now. He quickly apologized to the boys, trying to make up any excuse to leave. He rolled his window up and quickly began to speed off. However, before fully leaving the strip mall's parking lot, he quickly glanced in his car's rearview mirror to see if the kids were still there. To Brian's surprise and dismay, they were gone. It was almost as if they had vanished into thin air. How they left so quickly when it didn't and shouldn't have been physically possible is still a mystery. Brian's experience was something he didn't realize would eventually go public. It was a story he shared through a small group of emails between close friends, which later got leaked onto the internet. These emails no longer seem to be available to view anymore, but Brian himself has shared multiple detailed encounters in many articles and interviews. At that time of the story spreading, Brian began getting contacted by other friends, news reporters, random people in coffee shops, and even the TV show Monsters and Mysteries in America. It was a constant Q&A session for Brian, and for a time, he stopped replying and answering to them. When Monsters and Mysteries in America reached out to do an interview, that's when Brian decided that he would share his full encounter for everyone to hear. It was then, after his interview on the show, that more and more people started coming forward to share their own experiences with these black-eyed children. The internet even came up with the acronym BEK, short for Black-Eyed Kids. Some people say they experienced these children hitchhiking alongside roads late at night, walking along dark alleyways, hanging around 24-hour retailer shops, or knocking on the doors of people's homes in suburban neighborhoods, asking to be let in. They're often depicted as sickly and pale. Some say they're seen wearing hoodies just as Brian described. Others have seen these kids wearing a much older-fashioned style of clothing. Despite some of these differences, their soulless black eyes are what remain the same in every story. While not all these personal encounters may be true, the ones that share the depth of their emotions, sharing the sense of panic and hopelessness Brian had felt that night, are the ones that resonate with him and give him comfort, knowing that maybe there's people who have come to experience the terror of the black-eyed children. With these shared encounters, you start to wonder whether or not there's true history behind these kids, and to that, I myself am uncertain. Given the abundance of articles and videos online, most can only speculate as to what these kids are and where they come from. There are several theories, and none of them are comforting. The first and perhaps oldest theory ties the black-eyed children to folklore, specifically to the legend of changelings. In European tradition, changelings were believed to be fairy children left in place of human babies stolen in the night. They looked almost human. Almost. But something was always wrong. Their eyes too distant, their behavior too strange, their requests too deliberate. The need to be invited in, to be given permission before they can cross a threshold, mirrors this folklore almost exactly. In the old stories, you never invited a changeling inside. The consequences were never worth finding out. The vampire theory follows a similar logic. Across virtually every vampire myth in every culture, from Eastern European folklore to West African legend, the vampire cannot enter a home unless invited in. It must ask, it must wait, it must be given permission. The black-eyed children behave the same way. They knock, they request. They cannot simply take what they want. And much like the vampire of legend, there's something predatory behind the politeness. Something ancient pretending to need your help, when in reality, it's waiting for you to make a mistake. Others believe the black-eyed children are not creatures of folklore at all, but something more directly demonic. In demonology, certain entities are bound by rules. They cannot enter sacred or claimed spaces without consent. They must be welcomed. The compulsive, almost desperate way BEK pushes for permission, leaning closer, growing more agitated when refused, has led many researchers in the paranormal community to believe that these children are either demons in physical form or human children under full demonic possession, sent specifically to gain access to a living soul. The feeling of dread every witness describes is significant here. The bone-deep instinctual terror isn't something people typically feel around lost children. It's the kind of fear that bypasses rational thought entirely, the kind your body produces when something in your environment registers as a predator. Mayhaps it's one or the other. Maybe it's none. But the consistency across cultures, across decades, across countries, that's what makes these theories difficult to simply dismiss. In the closing words of all of Brian's interviews and retellings, he mentions that he will likely never know for certain what he saw that night, and that while he may never fully understand it, he's certain of one single thing. If he had let those children into the car that night, he would not be alive to tell his story. This modern urban legend of the black-eyed children is one that is shrouded in deep mystery. Its origins are still unknown, based only on theories of folklore and the paranormal, but the encounters, shared by many around the world, are too consistent, too detailed, and too emotionally raw to dismiss it entirely. These shared encounters are the reason why this legend still manages to pique our interest, and the reason it's still circulating in today's world. Whether you choose to believe in Brian or the other people's encounters with the black-eyed children is up to you. The weight of fact, fiction, truth, and lie is a heavy one, but the mystery of it all seems to keep us coming back. That said, curiosity can get the best of us sometimes, and as they say, curiosity killed the cat. Even if you're just the slightest bit curious, believe it or not, I suggest that you still be wary, because maybe one day, on a dark, cold evening, you may see a child, or two. You may drive through a dark, winding road and see them in the split second of passing by. Or maybe you'll be lucky enough to get a few knocks on your door. No matter where you are in the world, they can and will find a way to make themselves known to you. They will continue to roam the earth and continue to fill people with dread, terror, and fear. In the case you are the lucky person to receive a few knocks on your door, or even car window, just make sure to remember, never let them in.